Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new video on the channel. We have our week 3 power rankings for the LCS brought to you by me, because you're worth it. Anyway, as always, you can feel free to check out my live content at www.twitch.tv/trombone-no-vowels. It's the same you're going to find on this channel, except there's no space. Anyway, I think it's time we dive right into it at number 1. No surprise here, we have Liquid. Flyquest almost gave this team a run for their money. I'm glad that in this upside down week that the game to watch that I said was actually a game to watch. Very close and blow for blow, but at 30 minutes, Liquid seemed to turn on the jets, take firm control of the game. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I heard this game was one fight from it going the other way, but I really doubt that Flyquest had it in the tank to put this game away if they won that fight. Liquid still seems to be in a league of their own, and even when Flyquest seemed to have control of the game, Liquid still had a gold lead. Optic game, less exciting, still made some productive plays, but Liquid just did their thing, and there they are, undefeated, 6-0, league of their own. That's going to be Liquid. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Flyquest gave us some opportunity to see maybe Liquid could lose. Not super likely. So Liquid's pretty safe at number 1. Number 2. We've got CloudNine. This team kind of looks like it's found its polish. Against Clutch, they made a statement. They drafted a pretty difficult comp and past some small mess-ups, they just controlled and dominated that game. Sneaky's performance was through the roof. Licorice looked unstoppable on anything. I mean, he literally picked Silas, and I believe was the first pro win with it. I mean, this team looks clean. It seems to have found its polish, and if they can keep it up, look like the league's best hope for beating Liquid at this moment. They finally have separated themselves from the pack and sit solidly at number 2. Look out for Sneaky and the crew, CloudNine. At number 3, this is going to be a bit of a surprise. We've got 100 Thieves. Now, I want to start by saying, who the hell found the power switch for this team? We go from 1-3 with a slightly shady win against Golden Guardians, who we'll later talk about because they're impressive, but not quite number 3. Anyway, they take that and manage just obliterate everything in its way. They roll with it. They dismantled CLG, made them look absolutely silly. This was a team that was on a roll, and this is the 100 Thieves people were expecting to see from the beginning of the season, which leaves the question, were these guys trolling, or where the hell was the synergy switch, and why did it take them 2 weeks to find it? Bang looked impressive, Who he looked unlocked, and this team as a whole just seemed to find it. I mean, this may turn out to be my clutch in week 1 at number 2 pick, but this team has tools. This is where we come to the clutch game, where we see one of the biggest indicators that a team just needs a little bit more work. A struggle to close out the game, and kind of the only blemish on this week. Expect them to be pretty up and down, which keeps this team at number 3, and not really competing with C9 for that number 2 spot. But they've won 3 of their last 3, and is right now probably my biggest team to watch in this league. That brings us to number 4. CLG. While losing to a seemingly struggling 100 Thieves so badly, I think that this team deserves this spot right now. This is what the upper echelon of the middle of the pack looks like. I know that's a crazy indicator, and it really sucks to try to put CLG where they deserve because I am a fan, but I think they really do deserve this. I mean, beating out Echo Fox is a relatively close game, not a huge accomplishment, but this team is synergizing pretty damn well, and maybe having the highest rated talent in every role isn't really what this team needs. Regardless, they're looking strong, and the Week 1 0-2 woes look well behind them, unless they run into 2 of the 3 teams above them in the same week. Now, I'm not saying CLG looks unstoppable, because they've shown that they definitely are stoppable. But like I said before, if you want a clear picture of what the upper side of this middle of the pack looks like, it's definitely CLG. I don't think that we'll see any much movement up and down from CLG. I think at the end of the day, maybe they move up to take 100 Thieves spot if 100 Thieves really seem to not have what they showed this week. But it's a really good indicator that these teams are separating, and CLG just kind of manages to be at the top of that middle of the pack. They're not crazy high, they're not gonna like beat out Liquid, and they're a little unpolished. They have a little room to grow, but if they do grow, this team has crazy upside. I don't see them, like, again, contesting anything major, but CLG does look like they've found it. They're gelling, they're together, and I think it's safe to say that with a 1-1 week behind him, that this team is looking pretty good. That brings us to a very controversial number 5. We got Flyquest. And now, this is one of the closest performances against Liquid I think we've seen all split. We already talked about that. And I hate to be the biggest Turtle hater in NA, but a lot of his late game decision making just seemed to pit his team between a rock and a hard place. In the final fight, Turtle just seemed to go too far and really take away what his team needed to win: his DPS. I don't like to talk about draft all that often, and we're moving on to game 2, but the Nocturne pick against Echo Fox really kind of confuses me. I like the idea about darkening the map into a big ol' horn, but at the end of the day, there wasn't a whole lot of support to make this Nocturne pick, more than a light switch for the map in later stages of the game. And although Santorin was super proactive and almost seemed to put all of the team on his back, this team still seems to throw away as many games as they win. I mean, Flyquest looks good, but they also look like they need that final touch, showing us that they compete in the upper tiers of this league. But the only thing really stopping Flyquest right now seems to be the revolver they have, playing Russian roulette with their foot in the other team. Like, it was a joke, because they shoot themselves in the foot to lose games, or they just dominate the... Anyway, number 5, that's Flyquest. Moving on to Echo Fox. Right behind Flyquest, we see a continuation of what the clear middle of the pack looks like. Echo Fox has managed to take so many of the games and make them look competitive. Their 3-3 score is super earned. They belong towards the middle of this league and taking and losing games from a lot of teams. Echo Fox has been one of the hardest teams to place in this league. Now, I wouldn't say it's their inconsistency, because this team just always seems stupid consistent, but the teams they have been facing are really up and down. I mean, Fox is holding the middle of this league down strong, keeping everyone honest, but not necessarily keeping everyone down. Fox is, with all due respect right now, the boring team in this league. You know what you get, and it isn't the upper echelon of what you can see in this league. They're predictable and consistent. It's good enough, but it isn't great. The games they win are exciting as hell, and I'm not saying the games are boring, but the score and the standings are really seeming to be boring and super predictable. Lose day 1, win day 2. The Echo Fox formula. So that puts Echo Fox really solidly at number 6. Moving on to a very exciting number 7. We have the... wait for it? Golden Guardians. They played a high-octane bloodbath of a game against TSM where they looked pretty out-macroed, but still managed to pull out a well-fought victory against them. I mean, TSM looked like they pulled together their early game really well, but it seems when they do that, they lose some of their late-game prevalence, and Golden Guardians showed that pretty darn clearly. Think Froggen was underperforming on your team? Apparently just throw him on Karthus, and deaths don't have to be as part of a detriment to his team. The game against Optic... unfortunately, as most games go where Optic is the enemy team, Golden Guardians managed to thwart a little bit of that early game aggression that Optic has, and just seem to take the game over from there. I want to see this team with Froggen not on Karthus. Now, I don't mind them playing their own style, that's super cool, but I really think that Karthus was a band-aid. Maybe this is like CLG's Scion pick, and it's just what the team needed to figure out their style of play, but a win against a shaky-looking TSM and a new iteration of Optic's roster really isn't enough to, like, have me sold on this team and put them higher. Do look out for Golden Guardians, though. I think there's some really exciting matches coming up for them now that they seem to be clicking a little better. Again, I don't know if this is Froggen dependent. If Froggen isn't a champion that he likes or is comfortable with, I don't know if this Golden Guardians team works. But... if we see Froggen on a pick that isn't Karthus, where his deaths mean something, right? Where he can't just ult 30 seconds later and totally reshape a fight, I think Golden Guardians is a team to watch for breaking into the middle of this league and maybe, I hate to use the P word this early in the season, but maybe break into playoffs. They're sitting right now just below that, number 7. That brings us to number 8. We have Clutch Gaming. Now this one's a hard one, because after being well aboard the hype train after week 1, after a clearer and closer look at this team, I have to put them here at the top of the bottom. It's not the fact that they lost a really low-ranked 100 Thieves, it's the fact that this team is unfortunately living up to my expectations for them. And my expectations weren't that good, right? I don't know if you remember back to the preseason power rankings, but the two main issues I pointed out seem to be there. Piglet seems out of sync with his team, Huni looks like he's really hard stuck in a sophomore slump, and unlike in the preseason where I said that Huni can't 1v9 this team to success, Damonte, the bright spot for this team, I highly doubt can 1v9 this team to playoffs. My expectations from Huni's best form, and although Damonte's best may be yet to come, I don't think it's enough to overcome the out-of-sync bot and a very underperforming Huni. My rankings for Clutch Gaming being high enough was a Huni on form, and we're seeing not that at all. And though Damonte is stepping up his game a little bit, I do think this team still has a lot to prove. They might be able to pull it out, but right now this game is struggling. And maybe, hear me out, I haven't mentioned the Dardock effect in a long time, but Piglet does have that. And with enough losses, I wonder if this Clutch Gaming squad is less competitive over time because of that team synergy really breaking down, a lot of those team relationships breaking down, and Clutch Gaming not having enough to take what they need and push themselves into competitiveness with the rest of this league. As a bit of a downer, and we're moving on to number 9, where the downers just keep on coming. We got TSM. Now, this is a weird one, and I'm going to make it even more weird by saying I want to start and say I was really tempted to put this team in 10th. Every week we seem to see brief glimpses of what this team could be, but it's always heavily overshadowed by all of the issues that this team seems to have. TSM lacks identity on the Rift, and unlike back in the unfranchised world where TSM was always number 1 with the number 1 talent trying to reassure itself that they were just constantly trying everything so they could play anything, that's not the case. TSM doesn't have the best talent anymore, and the lack of identity can't be swept under the rug as experiments for the next international tournament. This team doesn't know what it is. I have a hard time saying that this is Zix because I have loads of respect for the guy, but the team needs to step up at coaching staff level. They need to figure out who this team is and put that into practice. TSM, they need to take all these glimpses that we've seen, all of those bright spots that TSM has, and put them together, and this team makes playoffs easy. Again, we're bringing up the P word more and more, but we're getting lower and lower down the standings, and things are starting to look dire. I mean, TSM has that potential. You can see it in their games. They just don't have that last piece to the puzzle, and I think it's really up to the coaching staff to make this a more cohesive game plan. Maybe not entirely, but give the players the tools they need to put this team together and make it one unit. It's not working right now. They really need to step up. They can make it, but unfortunately, if they don't put it together, TSM fans are just going to sit with their head in their hands again and watch international tournaments pass them by with TSM not in them. It's do or die time, especially with for like an organization like TSM with the expectations that TSM has. It's now. It's now. Week 4 is when you really need to step it up. Week 4 is when you show us that you're the real deal. And if you can't do that, your season is over. Your expectations aren't Golden Guardians. It's not make 10th. It's do something. Be someone. And this team can't do it until they take all those pieces, the early game strength, the late game strength, put them together and make it work. Number 9, TSM. That brings us to number 10. We have Optic Gaming. Bring back Asta. No, I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, this team looked massively out of sync. The team was struggling to remain in the middle of this league without its band of Academy men. Optic really has to restructure what their team will look like and what they want to do. I don't think it's time to throw your hands up in the air if you're an Optic fan and say, oh my god, the season is over. But you have to remember, C9 took weeks to form and polish. 100 Thieves took more to craft and polish from a really dire spot. CLG took a while to form, and I think they're still polishing. And all hope isn't lost for this team, but I do have to put them at 10th because the lack of cohesion and the it factor seems to be missing. And I don't think a 2-2 record going into a figuring it out phase for Optic is enough to really make playoffs. And I think this team could be at a caliber to make it. I think they're going to be edging in. They're going to be that gatekeeper at their best, but if they don't pull it together, if they don't figure out and throw this together relatively quickly, they're going to miss the boat. They're not going to be 7. They're going to miss it. And unfortunately, this team, if it stays, potential aside, if this team stays the way it is, it's going to be 10th. And that's why they have to go here. I'd like to see some cohesion. I'd like to see Optic back in the middle of the pack, but until this team gets it together, I just can't put them there. And that, my friends, wraps up this week's power rankings. On to that bonus content. We got your games to watch for week 4. On Saturday, it's looking like 100 Thieves versus Flyquest. This is going to be an explosive matchup, right? Like I said, Flyquest is playing Russian roulette with all their teams, right? Sometimes it's like they're counting bullets, and sometimes it's not like they're not. 100 Thieves versus Flyquest, really looking like the most engaging game. Maybe with a follow-up Clutch versus CLG. Everything else looks pretty predictable. Maybe TSM versus Optic, but that really depends on what TSM we see. So the 2 games to watch, but the really one big game to watch is going to be 100 Thieves versus Flyquest on Saturday. Maybe a Clutch versus CLG if you got some time to squeak that in. On Sunday, though, a couple games to watch. I think CLG versus Golden Guardians here is actually going to be quite an interesting one to watch. This is really 2 teams just starting to figure it out, right? And really put their teams in a place where they want them. And this is going to be do or die time. This is going to be where CLG either stays number 4 or they drops. Golden Guardians goes 7 or they go higher. Maybe if you got some time, probably going to be Echo Fox versus 100 Thieves. Like I said, 100 Thieves is the team to watch. Do they have it? Can they polish it? Echo Fox, like I said, being that boring and consistent team, they're a fantastic indicator of whether this team is the real deal or if they're just posers, right? This is going to be the determining factor on whether 100 Thieves 3-3 means they're competitive in this league or if they just had a good week. Echo Fox holds a very special role, right? I like to say that they're I've said it a couple times now, that they're the boring team, but they really are the gatekeeper for who's good and who's not in this league. If you can beat Echo Fox, if you can show what you can do against Echo Fox and make a statement, that means you belong in the upper half of this team. It means you're probably a playoff team. If you can't, you're probably right there in the hunt with everybody else. So that's kind of probably going to be my number 2 game to watch. Not quite as interesting, but it has a lot of potential to show us what this league is made of. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you watched all the way through, I freaking love you. What can I say? What can I say? Also, if you watched all the way through and you liked it, feel free to hit that thumbs up. If you like all the other content that you've seen, maybe this is the second video you've seen. Maybe it's the first video you've seen. Maybe you want to see more of this. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to talk about these power rankings further, just shed your thoughts on the subject, feel free to drop a comment. I have been notorious for responding to every comment on my YouTube channel. Again, if you didn't hear it in the beginning, maybe you skipped through. Feel free to visit my Twitch channel where we are live Sunday through Wednesday. You can feel free to stop by the channel, check out when that's going to be. Otherwise, that about wraps everything up for me, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have a good one.